turning the Arconia into a casino?
Well, have a good night. Hopefully they'll have murders in your next building, too.
Well, that's one way to tell someone that it's time to move. Welcome back to my channel, where today we'll be discussing episode 7 of season 5 of Only Murders in the Building, titled Silver Alert. This episode takes us to the country where our trio plays board games with some pretty high stakes. We learn that Camilla is no one to mess with, and the Arconia is potentially getting a major makeover. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a crazy, and I mean crazy, theory of who I believe the killer or killers are, and how it involves a killer AI machine that will make Oliver's crazy stories sound sane. With that said, let's put on our boots because we got some games to play as we try to solve this case and break down this episode, full spoilers ahead. We open this week's episode away from the city and into the country, where we meet two new characters played by real-life married couple Becky Ann and Dylan Baker. Now, Becky's character receives a silver alert for an elderly person that's gone missing, and that missing person is our Oliver, who's in danger and needs help. As we flash back to 9 hours earlier, here we find our trio at Oliver's place attempting to crack the case on Bash, who we know is their current prime suspect, by hoping to find Bash's location by listening to his Greatness Academy session. Now, Charles is still deeply traumatized, and rightfully so, still in his feelings about being catfished by Bash, as we watch them prepare for an interview for the mayor. But thanks to their pesky contract, they can't podcast about their latest suspect, but they still need to make content because of their contract. Now, as the mayor arrives, we see Charles is very lively as he's taking notes from WandaFi to really slut it up while introducing the mayor to their podcast. Now, the conversation starts off with some pretty heavy topics. For example, Oliver wants to know if the mayor will be fixing the sticky push button on the street corner, riveting stuff. But then the mayor tries to steer the conversation to murder, which Mabel quickly shuts it down, reminding him it's off limits because of their contract. Now, the mayor suspects they have a lead, and they mention that it is Bash, which Tillman is shocked to hear because he claims he loves Bash, or that's at least what he says in front of his assistant Romy before sending her off to get him some coffee. And as soon as she's out of earshot, Mayor Tillman looks at our trio and tells them that Bash is indeed the murderer. Now, going back to that scene, you notice how the assistant looked when Bash's name got brought up. As we'll find out, she's actually his niece. Now, taking a look at the title sequence this week, we get a tease of showing us little Algie as he's seen in Charles, Oliver, and Mabel's place. Now, stay tuned because I have a lot to say about this young man a little bit later in this breakdown. Now, Tillman explains that Romy was a forced hire, a spy placed by Bash to keep tabs on the mayor. Now, Tillman isn't 100% sure that Bash is the murderer, but he does say that he knows that Bash would do anything to get ahead, meaning that murder isn't off the table if he believes it'll help him win. Now, apparently Bash helped Tillman get elected, racking up some alarming numbers of IOUs that grew from small favors to massive demands. Now, these demands crippled Tillman's campaign promises, and the real reason he's on the podcast was to regain the public trust. Now, Tillman also confirms my suspicions in that Bash basically operates above the law. Remember those dirty cops who found Nikki's body? Charles certainly does, as he connects the dots as to see how powerful the Bash influence is. Now, Mayor Tillman proposes an alliance. He wants to team up with our trio to take Bash down. Now, before his assistant returns, he gives them a tip about Bash's secret rich people meeting in the middle of nowhere in Connecticut. As the mission of the week is to get dirt on Bash, as we can see, the stakes are incredibly high in this episode because Bash is probably the most dangerous and most likely the most powerful suspect they've ever faced. So naturally, against Oliver's better judgment, they head out to Connecticut to what Oliver appropriately dubs Bash's Lion's Den. Now, in a moment that's going to cause major headache later, we see Oliver texting Loretta, dramatically claiming he's been taken against his will. But thanks to no cell phone service in the middle of nowhere, he can't send a follow-up text clarifying that he was just kidding. Now, outside this creepy estate, they meet Algie, Bash's son, the same unnerving kid from the title sequence, casually making a shiv. Now, is he a ghost? Is he a zombie? Is he the manifestation of pure evil? Well, we don't know, but he's definitely creepy as hell, and I think I know why. Let the crazy theories begin. Let me throw one at you all right here. We see Algae with the knife and mentioning how he doesn't interrupt the games or else he'll be sent to the cellar. Now, later in the episode, Bash said he's never missed a single bedtime for Algae. So, did Bash take little Algae to the building and he snuck into the Velvet Room and interrupted a game, and whether it was accidental or on purpose, did he cut our mysterious person's missing finger off? I mean, that would explain why Bash had that footage edited, because he didn't want his son to be there or to be shown to be there and show that he was maybe involved. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg for this new character. More on this Chucky killer kid later. Now, inside, they stumbled upon the three billionaires, not plotting world domination, but instead they're playing Operation. Now, of course, Oliver gets creeped out because he didn't want to be there in the first place, as he accidentally makes a noise and they get outed as the trio is caught trespassing. By the way, is there a reason why Camilla is always wearing gloves? Now, could she be missing a finger? And was Algae with his shiv making tendencies responsible for that missing finger? Now, back with our two trios, apparently these billionaires occasionally take a break from being rich to have game nights and to share gossip. Now, our trio decides to stay and watch them play board games to see if they're being honest, until Bash steps away to handle some business, as it's time to get round two of our trio taking on the billionaires one by one. First up, we have Camilla and Oliver. Camilla learns Oliver might be selling his place, and she seems involved, more on that later, as she gets upset that Oliver hasn't thanked her for the remodel which she did to make his place more attractive to this mysterious new buyer. Now, Camilla got a bit aggressive with Oliver, threatening to, as I quote,
"I should cut off your balls and shave them into a potpourri."
Now, she blamed it on the alcohol and apologized, but this threat, and later when she pulls out the gun on our trio, it's safe to say that Camilla White has a pretty mean and nasty side to her. Now, could these be signs that point her to turning a level of violence into murder? I remind you all just how quickly her team was able to remodel Oliver's place. A team that quick and efficient and clean, I bet could definitely clean up a murder scene if their boss lost their temper. Meanwhile, Charles, still wearing his heart on his sleeve, confronts Bash about catfishing him and, more importantly, calls him out as a murderer. Now, Bash completely ignores the catfish allegations, but he denies being a killer. His reasoning? He hates death. He's obsessed with staying youthful because he lost his papa at a young age, and he wants to be around for his son Algae forever. Now, the key word there to pay attention to is forever. Is this a genuine motive or a manipulative deflection? I'm leaning towards the latter, but Charles looks momentarily swayed. And lastly, we have Mabel and Jay finally catching up after Jay lied to her. Now, Jay, the charmer, continues to lay on the flirtation on Mabel, but then he lets something slip that's pretty important.
Look, I know my friends are eccentric, but really we're just a bunch of bored, rich people hashing out a bet. The same one we were trying to settle the last time we were in that gaming parlor.
Night that Lester died. Now, Mabel wants to cut through the BS as she proposes a high-stakes board game. Our trio versus the billionaires. Now, if our trio wins, the billionaires tell them everything, and if the trio loses, they stop investigating them forever, as the challenge is accepted. But Oliver, looking completely done with the games and the danger, stands up. He tells them he's got too much to lose with Loretta, and he's not risking his life or their future for this. He's had enough of the games as we watch Oliver leave. Now it is time for the game Who Can Name the Most Celebrities Under a Minute. The billionaires get historical figures, and Camilla and Jay manage to get 5 names, putting pressure on Charles and Mabel. Now we have a little moment where little Algae cheers his dad on, but is told to go to the cellar. I can't help but to think that Algae is someone of importance. Now let me throw another wild theory out there to you all. We know that Bash is a tech genius said to be pushing the envelope of new innovations. What if, and I mean a big what if Algae isn't an actual human child, but instead he's an AI robot? Bash doesn't actually have real kids, but instead he considers his robots his children, and Algae is one of his latest innovations. What if this cellar is where he charges his robots up? That would explain his weird and odd behavior, because he's not a kid, he's an AI machine. I want to go back to the scene where Bash was cutting bark from that tree skin. Listen to what he tells Charles.
The bark helps with my Algernon's digestion.
Now, this makes me think of a short story by the name of Flowers of Elgeron. The story is told by a series of progress reports written by Charlie Gordon, the first human subject for the surgery, and it touches on the ethical and moral themes such as treatment of the mentally disabled. Again, I believe Algie is no human child, but instead he is an AI robot created by his creator Bash to prolong his life. Again, I told y'all it's a wild theory I have, but one that isn't out of the realm of possibility. Now, back to the game, this brings us to Charles and Mabel. And their category? Broadway. Now, if Oliver hadn't run off into the woods, this would be a slam dunk. But without the Broadway prince, Charles and Mabel are staring down the barrel of total defeat. Now, Mabel is no Broadway expert, but there is a lot on the line now, and time for a miracle. Meanwhile, back in the literal woods, Oliver is still suffering from a total lack of reception. Now back to the game, we see Mabel and Charles start off pretty bad by passing on everything. But then Mabel has a stroke of genius. She realizes that Oliver uses stories about Broadway legends to explain everything. She starts using those anecdotes as clues, and Charles is firing away with the correct answers, and ladies and gentlemen, they actually win.
You motherfuckers beat us.
This just proves both Mabel and Charles are truly great listeners, and they listen to every ridiculous, over-the-top story that Oliver tells. Their friendship is magic, even if it's based on the life and times of Ethel Merman. Now, the billionaires revealed that the night that Lester died, they weren't playing for fun. They were playing for the biggest New York development contract since Grand Central. And yes, as I predicted in my last week's breakdown, it was for the ownership of New York's very first casino permit. This whole getaway, the board games, the ridiculous challenges, it was a competition to determine who would be the face of the bid. Now, Bash also explains that scrubbing of the footage was for pure vanity. He never likes to be seen or to have people track his comings and goings. Again, this kind of connects to my Algie theory. Bash mentions swiping footage of him and Algie at a Jamba Juice. I'm telling you all, Algie was with his papa that night. As of now, the truth is clear. This was about a casino, not a murder, or was it? However, there is still one glaring mystery unsolved. As Mabel picks up their cheap plastic winner's trophy, she notices how increasingly tense the billionaires have become. As she decides to crack it open, and sitting inside the award is the prize that determines who truly wins the games, and it is the missing stolen finger. Now back to Oliver, we revisit the opening scene where we found him in distress and now understand why he was in a panic. When he finally found reception, the floodgates open. Missed calls, text messages, all from Loretta detailing her concern, and one final panic-inducing message that she was going to report him missing, hence the silver alert as Oliver is in full flight mode. Again, he's found by the couple we met at the start, who assumes that he's just a lost, delusional elderly person, which, by the way, isn't entirely inaccurate. Now, trying to explain the situation, they think Oliver is spinning a wild tale. Now, Oliver rambles a bunch of stuff that does sound kind of ridiculous if you don't know him. For example, he talks about he has a wife that's an actress that's filming a show in New Zealand, his friends are being held captive, and he can't get the police involved because the mayor told him that the police can't be trusted, and also the mayor was on his podcast this very morning. And just for good measure, he casually drops that he's friends with Ron Howard and that they're making a movie about him. To the unsuspecting couple, Oliver sounds entirely unhinged. Now, back at the mansion, Jay tries to stop Charles and Mabel from leaving. This finger is the key to the entire operation. He says how much danger they're in because this finger was very expensive to get. Now, Mabel guilt trips him, and we can tell that Jay has a soft spot for her, so he eventually lets them go. Now, going back to what Jay was saying, what on earth did he mean by they paid for the finger, and what danger are they really in? Again, if my theory of Algie cutting someone's finger off and it getting in the mix in Oliver Shrimp, could this person be so important that they are even more powerful than the billionaires and they have the green light to giving this casino a go? I guess the idea being that if they return the finger back to the person, it would bid will for them if they returned it. But the question remains, who would be as powerful or as important as the three billionaires? Now, as we come to a close of this episode, Mabel and Charles are being Michael Myers style slowly chased down by the arranged billionaires, but fear not, as Oliver having successfully convinced the couple that found him to take him back as he makes a grand entrance. And it's on a tractor. as they pile in and speed away back to Manhattan with a very expensive dead finger. Now, back at Charles's place, the trio is debating what they should do with this little dead finger as Camilla arrives to settle things her way. Camilla reveals that the finger is the ultimate decider for the casino bid and that there's only one permit, as she explains her goal, making gambling chic. And then that temper that we spoke about comes into play, as Camilla pulls out a mini small gun to let them know that she means serious business, as the trio valuing their lives over the severed finger handed over to her. And like most villains do when they feel in control, Camilla explains her grand vision. Remember how Ursula mentioned a lot of people were moving out of the Arconia recently? Well, Camilla is the buyer for not only Oliver's place, but she also bought up all the recently vacant units as well, as her plan is to build what she calls the Camilla Club Casino at the Arconia. Alright, so let's talk about that final moment. Now, I didn't think this was possible, but based on some of the promotional stuff I've seen online the last few weeks for this show, it appears that we will see Camilla's plan come into fruition, meaning that the building will be changed forever. Now, let's jump into my suspect list for this week. Now, I'm going to put my chips all on this bet here. I believe the killer will be revealed to be an AI, artificial intelligence robot. I believe this is the show's way of saying how AI is bad. Think about last season. If you all do not know, it was slightly delayed because of the writers and actors strike, and one of the biggest issues that took so long to figure out the situation was the use of AI in Hollywood. And as a lot of people say, art sometimes imitates real life. I think this is the show's way of saying how they do not like AI, and that AI is the enemy. Again, I share my algae as an AI killer robot theory in this breakdown, but let's add a little bit more seasoning to that idea. I think about the first time we officially met all three of the billionaires together at Oliver's place, and I remember Jay mentioning how Bash talked like a robot. With that said, could Algae be remade in Bash's form, Bash creating a literal robot that can literally live forever in his place? Now, we know that most AI robots in movies and shows tend to have an evil side to them. Think about most recently like Megan. Could Algae, the AI robot, be our killer? Did Algae have like a bad glitch, or was he told to kill someone by his creator? He was triggered to protect his papa and went off the rails? Also, to support my Algae as a robot, remember Bash saying that he likes to go on swims in the pool, but we didn't see him in the water? Well, that's because normally robots and water don't mix well. Now that makes me think about Bash's niece, Romy. We know that she serves as Bash's eyes to keep tabs on the mayor, but knowing that means that either Bash has a brother or a sister, which means that Romy has a mom or a dad, which makes me wonder how important will they play into the story, if at all. Or, back to my AI takeover theory, what if Romy is a robot herself? Think about it, being considered Bash's eyes and ears, just like Lester the robot. Also, the mayor saying that she's the best assistant he ever had, and also mentioning how fast she is when she gets coffee. I don't know, maybe she's just as fast as a T-1000. So I beg the question, could Romy be a walking, talking AI robot like her little brother Algae? It's almost like Bash is creating a Westworld situation potentially. Now, I also want to throw this out there. Can we 100% trust the mayor? If the police are crooked, why would we trust a politician? Is he trying to get a hold of this very important finger too? Now, going back to Camille, who this episode is shining the light on being our #1 suspect, replacing Bash from last week, as we saw her dark side and her pulling the gun on our trio. But the question remains, who does the finger actually belong to? And what's the connection between this missing finger and the murders of Nikki and Lester? Going back to what was mentioned by Jay of having to purchase it and it being dangerous, where does that all come into play? Again, is there another billionaire who is just as important as the three that we've met so far that we haven't met yet? Or, here's a question, is it actually a human finger? I know it's discolored, but again, my robot theory, what if this was a finger of Bash's robot with human-like skin that's actually a thumb drive with important criminal information on it? Okay, the robot theory's gone a little bit too far, but I do ask the question, who do you think the finger belongs to? And if my theory of robots being involved is true, could this finger be a robot's finger? So overall, I really love the chemistry of our two sets of trios, with obviously our trios and the billionaires. It's always fun to see them go back and forth. It was a really fun and exciting episode, very similar to last week's. I feel like my robot theory, being that Lester, Romy, and Algie aren't real people, has a lot of potential, but I guess we'll have to wait to see what comes in the coming weeks. Well, there you have it. That will conclude my breakdown of episode 7 of season 5 of Only Murders in the Building. Now, before we wrap up, if you all have made it to this point in the breakdown, I really cannot thank you enough. I love this show. I love interacting with you all and talking about this show. So before we leave, put in the comments right now, #GameOn. So with all that said, what did you all think about the episode? What do you all think about my AI theory? What do you all think about your own theories, your predictions, your Easter eggs, the biggest takeaways you have for this episode? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. As always, if you all enjoyed this week's breakdown, do me a favor, hit that like button. And when you hit the like button, there is a feature that YouTube calls the hype button, which actually spreads this video to new viewers. Speaking of new viewers, do me a favor and hit that share button as well, which allows this to be found to people that love talking about this show just as much as we do. And last but not least, consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel and getting more Only Murders in the Buildings content, as well as other movie reviews and TV reviews and so much more. And also, if you all are listening to this via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please consider liking this breakdown, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and also follow my podcast. And do me a favor, leave a review and leave a rating. I would really appreciate it. Alrighty, y'all, you can find all my Only Murders in the Building content in the description of this video or on the screen now. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all next week on the next episode of Only Murders in the Building.